Thanks for joining today. My name's Lenny, this is Jake, and today we're gonna be covering seller mistakes to avoid on Amazon. So, without any further ado, do you wanna kick it off, Jake?
Yeah, let's do it. So, in front of me here, I got a little presentation, nothing crazy, but it'll help guide us today throughout this, basically the mistakes that we wanna help you avoid. And these are primarily gonna be about product research. So if you're looking for a product to sell, whether it's your first or your 10th product, this will be relevant for you. So the first mistake, Lenny, is one that we talk about all the time, and this is selling products with low demand. Oftentimes, we see sellers jump into Amazon because they have an idea to sell a product. They saw Shark Tank and they go, oh, I have an idea and I want to sell something that I came up with. But they don't understand whether or not people are actually buying that on Amazon specifically, and specifically in their market. So the US, Canada, or wherever you're selling in the world, you need to make sure that people are actually already going to Amazon, searching for it and buying it. And not doing that can leave you in a state where you're just either gonna find out the hard way, whether you're, or the good, maybe you're lucky and it works, but you don't wanna find out the hard way essentially. So
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe where people go wrong a little bit, I mean, I think most people understand that demand is important, but I think maybe they kind of like miss when it comes to the prioritization against other key factors.
Yes.
So one in particular that we've talked about, that everyone's talked about a lot, is the idea of low competition or having lower competition. And for sure, that definitely is important, but I think where people sometimes go wrong is they potentially value the lower competition more than the higher demand, which can be a mistake because yes, again, you want to have lower competition, but if finding a lower competition product or niche also means that that product doesn't have as much demand, that can just sort of tap out or max out your sales and your opportunity, just because you've got a ceiling now of how many sales that you can get. So I would say that higher demand is more important than lower competition. And so to just always keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's a reason we have it number one in not just this video, but any video where we talk about the key factors of finding a good product. And Lenny, I actually want to show something on screen here. So I typed in just a little bit ago this search term, bowling ball towel. Don't ask me how I found it, this idea, but I just found a weird or random product and I typed it in here. And I want to show you an example of a product similar to Lenny's recent comment there of, okay, this is a category as I'm looking at it where maybe there isn't too much competition. So I'm just specifically looking at the ratings to help guide that. And what I'm looking for is how many big sellers are there, which are defined by sellers that have hundreds or even thousands of reviews. And here I can see this top product has 3,000. Then we see 766. So 66 is 6. He's in the third position right here. I see 300, 100, 100. So not that many thousand products there. And as you can see from date first available, this column here, there's a lot of sellers that have recently launched this product. So and are doing pretty well. However, let's look at the sales now. Whether you want to look at daily sales, let me get there, or monthly sales to determine this. There's only a few sellers at the top here that are above 10 daily sales or 300 monthly sales. And if you're new to the channel, that's usually what we define as a high demand product. Any product that can hit those numbers on a consistent basis throughout the year. And outside of those three products, I'm seeing 2, 2, 3, 13, 8. Now there is 175 here. But then there's not that many sellers down this list that are consistently hitting that 10 daily sales or more. So this is the danger, I guess, Lenny, of what you mentioned of like you're just looking at competition and you're fearful of being in a highly competitive category, but you're letting that be the number one indicator of what you should sell rather than the other way, starting with demand first and then making sure that new sellers are able to compete so the competition is still viable as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that is to me, I think the biggest thing that you should be considering when we actually launched the P pads. You made this point very well, I think. It was a high competitive category. It wasn't even medium. It was a highly competitive category. But because there's so many people coming to Amazon, if we just took a sliver, like 1% of the market, not even 1%, we'd be doing pretty well, which is what we're doing right now.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. All right, what do you say maybe going to the second mistake here?
All right, so what is mistake number 2?
Yeah, mistake number 2 is exactly what sorry, this is different. I got the order mixed up. Mistake number 2 is selling products with low profit margins. So not only do you need demand, but you need to make sure for every sale that you're getting that you're going to be profitable each and every sale. And to me, I think these are the two that you must have. Like, there's a lot of other factors on this list that are nice to haves, and that ones that you should try to aim for. But these two right here are, I think, what kills most businesses that either can't sell their product or can't sell it profitably. So yeah, I mean, what do you think, Lenny? Like, in terms of profit margin, is there a number that if someone out there is like, okay, I get it, I need to have a highly profitable product, like what do I shoot for? What's the number I should be looking at?
Yeah, well, I mean, first we can talk maybe about the metrics that are commonly referred to. So the two would be your actual net profit or net profit margin, and then the other one is your ROI, return on investment.
Okay.
And that's usually measured based off of how much money are you putting up front for this product per unit. So let's say you spend $10 to purchase this product and for shipping. Basically, that's what we refer to as like your landed cost. That's your money out of pocket to get this product. And then your ROI is what percentage of that do you get on top of your money back. So typically a good goal to shoot for is 100% ROI.
Okay.
And so in that instance, you would be getting $10 profit back in addition to your original $10. So I hand over $10 to buy my product, and then I get $20 back. So I've been covered for my initial investment, and I've got 100% return on my initial investment. So ROI is a good one, or specifically 100% ROI is a good measure. You're not always going to hit it. Like, I know that sometimes we, like, depending on what price we're selling at, it might be 90, 85, or 80 to 90% ROI. And that can be okay if the actual dollar amount that you're getting back is fairly significant as well. So yeah, I'd say ROI is one. And then in terms of your profit margin, maybe I'll throw this back to you. Is there sort of a percentage that you would shoot for, or a minimum percentage that you think people should aim to get?
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is just like what you can see right now. So I'm just thinking about product cost and estimating things like shipping even. You're not gonna be able to know storage and advertising costs per unit and a bunch of other like return fees per unit, but you can add in an extra $1 or so to factor for that. But just considering like the product and shipping cost that you can figure out, the margin number I like to shoot for when estimating is upwards of 30%. To your point, you could go a little bit lower than that, down to 20% on your estimations if you think you're gonna be selling a crazy amount of volume or the dollar amount return is significantly high. So yeah, what I like to do is, like you said, ROI using a tool that I'll show you here in a second to get 100% or net margin above 30%. And usually that's done through the Amazon Revenue Calculator tool. So if you haven't used that tool, or you just need a refresher on it, we do have a video on our YouTube channel, a recent video that shows you how to use that. It's an Amazon tool made by Amazon that help you estimate your product cost and return per sale. But yeah, maybe I'll show you now my screen here, just go to the ROI side. So to Lenny's point, 100% ROI is what you want to shoot for, and Jungle Scout makes this easy to calculate for you by having this profit calculator tool within the extension. And so to explain this example here, here's a product that we're looking at. These are the bowling ball towels that we were just looking at here, and it's a 3-pack, but it's really just like a microfiber towel. So what I can do is, if I'm going to sell something similar to this, I can actually head over to this net profit column and click it to see the profit calculator tool. And what this will do is it already has the product weight, the dimensions, and the product tier. So when we have that information, we can confidently say, this is the FBA fee, this is the referral fee, and these are the total fees. Therefore, if you sold this product for $0, you would make back $9.20. But let's say, obviously you're not gonna sell it for $0 or buy it for $0. Let's say you buy it for $5. Well, coming down here, I can click calculate to see, okay, what's my profit? So it's $4.20, which is an 84% ROI percentage, which is lower than what we want it to be. So what I typically do, and what we typically do when we're either teaching product research through our sessions like this, or we're doing it ourselves, is we'll find product ideas that have high demand, low competition, all that stuff that we'll talk about today. And then as we're doing it very high level and quickly, we'll head over to Alibaba and try to get a quick estimate. So for example, these are microfiber towels that I typed in here. We're gonna wanna buy a 3-pack. I'm just gonna scan through and say, okay, 28 cents is the high, $1 is the high point, almost a dollar there. So let me just like click on one here. And a lot of times it just depends on how many you buy. So it's like, okay, you buy 50 pieces, but I'm sure, 50 pieces is like a 10 pack or something. But let's just say it's $1 per, where am I at here? Let's say it's $1. Most likely it's gonna be more than $1. So let's go $1.50. A lot of times what they say on the page is a little bit lower. And then let's factor in shipping per unit. So maybe I'll add an extra like $4 there, or $3. So maybe let's go, put it on $3.50 to start with. And say, okay, if we calculate $3.50 as our buy cost, then okay, we're above our 100% ROI. And what really we like to do is just go up to the highest point that we can and see what our maximum price is that we can buy from the supplier and still hit that 100% ROI. So here it's looking like it's gonna be around $4.60. Yep, $4.60. So if we go to our suppliers and we say, hey, what's the price gonna be all in all included, and it's under $4.60, then we'll know we'll be profitable with it. Ideally, you'd probably want it to be like $3 or $4, so you can factor in things like shipping, advertising even, and all that stuff that you'll find out after you launch your product. But this is the process of finding a product, making sure it has high demand, and then confirming that either the ROI is over 100% or the net margin is ideally over 30%. So yeah, any other thoughts before we move on to the third?
No, let's move on to the next mistake.
All right, so the third mistake that a lot of beginners make when doing product research is selling in overly competitive categories. And I know we've already talked about this, but I think we can tackle this from a different light than what we've already said. What I like to define overly competitive is, and it's different from everybody, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is not just like there's a lot of people selling the product. It's how many, or what's the likelihood of a new seller coming in and actually getting sales. And what I mean by sales is getting that high demand. So getting 10 sales per day, 300 sales per month. What's the likelihood of that happening? A lot of people define it differently. That's how I define it. I can show them, I'll show you guys in a second how I look at that through the extension, but any other thoughts on like what to look for or what defines a highly competitive category?
No, I mean, I think you've sort of covered it, and you can go back and watch our product research videos on the channel real quick. If you're enjoying this content, then make sure to give us a thumbs up and even consider subscribing if you want more content like this. But we do have a lot of content that outlines all of the top criteria that you should be looking for within a good product. And in many of those videos, we do outline how we view competition or sort of what to look for. But yeah, to your point, it's normally sort of gauged by the number of reviews or ratings that that your competitors have. And generally, if you go into a niche and every single listing has, say, thousands of reviews, that's what we call an overly competitive category or product. So you're saying that shouldn't be, say, your only measure, that there's another way to kind of gauge the level of competition?
Yeah, I think there's probably even more ways than we'll be able to communicate right now or even think of right now. But yeah, the way I like to do it, I can show right here on my screen, is I use the search term disposable pee pads for dogs, which if you're not new to the channel, you know that we use this example a lot because we sell reusable pee pads for dogs. However, this is an example of what I like to look for when I'm really trying to gauge the competitiveness of any type of niche that I'm looking at. And so to your point, Lenny, yes, we want to look at ratings, which is reviews on Amazon, and see how many big sellers are out there, and does it even make sense for us to come in? Like, are we just gonna be dominated or overshadowed by them? But the other way I like to see is using this date first available column. And really what I'm trying to see is, have there been new sellers that have came in already and proven that it's possible for a new seller to compete with these big guys? And I don't mean getting in front of Amazon right here, which is the first two products at the top are Amazon Basics with hundreds of thousands of reviews and thousands of daily sales because they're Amazon. I don't mean trying to beat them or try to even get to their level. I just mean get above 10 daily sales consistently. And how long does it take to get there? And so what I like to do is, you can scan the list here and just look at this. Like, okay, 2022, so that's not even a year. This product has over 400 reviews, 33 daily sales. Now, one thing I just want to check on, if I click on this listing here, is sometimes they just added a new variation, and that's what the extension is picking up on. And so I like to actually open it into the listing and click on the extension again. What this will show you is all the products that they launched here. So there's actually, all of these are marked 2022 and 2023, and 2 are missing here. Most likely, Amazon just doesn't have it in where we can scrape it. So a lot of times really where Jungle Scout gets this information is by scrolling down and seeing it over here. So you can see date first available here. So if it's not there, sometimes Amazon hides it. We can't see it. And so most likely, you got 400 reviews. There's a chance that they launched longer than 2 years ago. And so I'm just trying to verify that there's actual new sellers in here. So 92 sales, or I'm sorry, 92 reviews, getting 28 sales. Is he successful, and has he actually done this within the past year or two? And so he has, great. So 2023, so this year, not too long ago, this seller's launched and he's getting 28 daily sales. A quicker way that you can do this in the extension is actually filtering. If you go over to filter results, and in this date first available column, you can just filter by either the past 2 and 1 years. I'll typically start at 2 years and then narrow down to 1 year. So just by clicking apply on that, we can see on the first page of Amazon, just the first page, there's 15 products that have launched in the past 2 years. And I guess specifically what I should have done is say, where's our monthly sales? Right here. I want to make sure all of these sellers have 300 or more monthly sales. So these are going to show us now the high demand products on this page that were recently launched in the past 2 years. And I encourage you to do this with all the categories that you're looking at on Amazon. Look at the reviews, and then also look at when new products were launched. And if you can see a few products at least, like maybe 5, 10, whatever the number is, that's very arbitrary, that have gone on and started and picked up and are getting great sales, it doesn't matter if they even have a percentage of the market. If you can confirm that it's possible for you, your new product with 0 sales, to get to where they're at too, then to me, that defines it as a not highly competitive category, and one that you should consider launching into and not being afraid to sell in that category. But let me know if that doesn't make sense. I can clear it up. I know that was a lot. Let us know in the comments below, or whether you're watching this live in the chat or in the comments post live. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. We can clear it up for you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, so Jack, what do you say we move on to the next mistake to avoid?
Yeah, so the fourth mistake that we see a lot of beginners make when doing product research is not making any product improvements. And this is one that's sort of, I think, more relevant now than it was like 5 years ago, because there's so many people selling on Amazon. You can't just sell, I mean, you can just sell a very similar product that everyone else is already selling. And, you know, through marketing and just, I guess, time and effort and even investment, eventually get to a point to where you're successful. But I think the best way is by actually bringing a product in that's better than your competitors. And there's so many ways of doing that, but that to me is my opinion. You need to try to improve your product. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You could just tell the manufacturer to fix this one little thing that they can do easily with the equipment they already have. But to me, I think that's a really big mistake that sellers that are making pretty frequently now.
Yeah, definitely. When I first started back in 2015, I think it was very much the case where you could sell pretty much just a generic product. You could get away with not even really branding it or putting a logo or doing too much to differentiate it at all, and the sales would just come in, which was great. But certainly over the years, it's become more and more important, to the point where now I would say this is an absolute must. In the past, we've always spoken about this idea and referred to it as something that is a nice to have, but I think it's sort of a must have now. Like you said, with the levels of competition, yes, it is competitive on Amazon, but there is still opportunity there if you do this, if you find ways to make your product stand out from the rest. And even if you can get away with less product differentiation, there's essentially like a correlation between how much you change your product and sort of the lifespan of your product. The more heavily differentiated it is, the longer you're gonna go before other competitors creep in. Because that's also, competitors, more and more competitors are going to join the space. So the harder you are to copy, the harder it is for anyone to steal that sort of market share from you.
That's a great point.
So I guess that sort of leads to the question, how do I do this? What are some different ways that we can differentiate products or make product improvements? Does this mean that you have to completely redesign it and make it 100% different to everything else out there? Or what's the different things that we can change?
Yeah, maybe to try to just be as actionable or practical as I can for you here. A few ways that you can do it is you can obviously bundle together. That's one of the most popular ways of improving a product, is to pair it with something that is frequently bought with it. And you can typically find that on the Amazon page just by scrolling down to the section that is frequently bought with. So if you have a plate, it could be a napkin or utensil. If you have, I don't know, like a soccer ball, it could be soccer cleats, whatever the case is. You just pair those products together, make it easier for the person that's buying both things just to buy it through you. So both through you. Bundling is one. Another way is to improve the functionality. To me, I think this is like the biggest improvement that you can make that will have the biggest difference or will make the biggest difference. And the best way of figuring out what that is to read reviews. And you want to do this, like, and not just like take an hour to do it, but like I would take like multiple hours, depending on how much free time you have, even a few days or weeks, to like read hundreds of reviews if you can. The 1, 2, 3, and 4-star reviews, that is a gold mine of information. And you can use tools like ChatGPT to help isolate and sort of just like rank what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
And really just figure out what people are saying they like and dislike, and then tell your supplier to make those improvements. It doesn't have to be anything crazy like you said. Maybe it's like, oh, this lid right here doesn't close all the way, or when I flip this upside down, which I'm nervous to do so I won't do it, it leaks.
Yeah.
And you can tell your supplier, we need this to be leak proof. I need to be able to turn it upside down, and I can't have the product I'm going to buy from you has to do that, otherwise I can't buy from you. So I think functionality is the best way to make an improvement, and reading reviews is the #1 way to figure out what that improvement should be.
Yeah, just trying to think of like another practical example that I've seen in the past. So the bottom of my laptop here has like this case over it. And when I've shopped for laptop cases and even, I think like laptop cases in the past, I've avoided products because I was reading the reviews and lots of people were saying that like, oh, this one port is covered up, or like I can't plug in like my cable here because the case covers up the port or something. And so that would be like another practical example where it's like, okay, everyone says that this case is really strong, it's really good. I want this product, but I need you to, make the gap bigger, or, a real practical change based off of, the hard data and what people are actually saying about the product.
Yeah. That's a good example. There's so many. I mean, you can think of any product right now. I'm sure you've had a good and bad experience with it in one way or another. So you don't have to use your own intuition. You can just use other people's thoughts that are already out there on Amazon.
Yeah, and so I feel like maybe we kind of have to address this. What about inventing products? What is our stance on that? Should people be going out and inventing products or not?
I mean, if you have the budget, inventing is going to be very expensive, but if you have the budget and hopefully it's not your first time selling, so you have a little bit of like what to expect, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would never want to stop someone from inventing a product, but just understand the risks that go with it. So, if you have experience or you do have the budget, then I'd assume you'd be aware that like if there's no data out there that suggests that this is the product that people want, because there's nothing out there that already exists, you can't use existing data, then that's a risk. You're gonna take a risk, and you're gonna have to spend a lot of money educating people. But I don't think it's a bad idea. In fact, I think it's the goal. Like I want to invent a product one day. That's truly the goal. It's gonna be a big risk. Without risk, there isn't any reward. So
yeah,
just be cautious, know your risk, but go for it if you can. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say maybe probably the best case scenario for inventing a new product would be if you can find like your particular product exists. There's data out there that people want the product, but you're just reinventing how that product is delivered. So using like the mug example, it's like everyone is complaining about it leaking, for example, and you're maybe able to reinvent or invent a way that is completely different to how everyone else has done it. You've got the data there that people want a leak-proof mug, but your specific solution for that is completely new and invented.
I think this is a good idea too. So this is a Yeti lid for it, and they have this MagSafe slider there. If you're not familiar with it, it's just a magnet slider, and it makes it really easy to open and close. I'm pretty sure they invented this or came out with this mag slider, and I'm sure that came after a result of people like just complaining about how annoying and tedious it is to open their bottle. So that's a great example of like you're not reinventing the wheel, you're just making something better, but you did invent something technically. You can patent that idea and kind of protect that investment. So yeah, it's a great point.
Okay. What do we have next?
Cool. Yeah, so our 5th big product research mistake that a lot of beginners make is failing to vet their suppliers. And this to me, I mean, this can't break your business technically because You can always find a better supplier, but it will slow you down and potentially leave you in an area where you have a lot of bad reviews even, and you're trying to make up that loss. So what I mean by vetting your suppliers is you got to order samples and plenty of samples. So rather than just reaching out to one supplier, you want to really do your best to reach out to as many suppliers as you can afford to get samples for. That way you can truly test the product and then test the relationship with the supplier. You're really being sold on two things, the product and the relationship with the supplier. That's gonna be really important to do. If you don't have the funds to buy 5, 10 samples, because they could range to $100 each with shipping, then one way to vet your supplier, if you just have one or even two, is to order multiple samples. And so it's another way to help see the consistency of the value or the quality of their product. So there's probably other ways to vet suppliers. What do you think, Lenny, like in terms of, again, like you need to vet the product and the relationship with the actual supplier. What are some like tips or tricks that you do when you're reaching out to suppliers to make sure they're the right ones to work with?
Yeah, so I guess there's you could create a whole video on this, but some quick things. There's a number of things that you can do on Alibaba itself. So when you're looking at suppliers, you can be looking at kind of their past history, who they've worked with, what countries they've supplied to. There's even, I think, some sort of like review type system on there. So you can get a little bit of data that way. Jungle Scout also has a tool called Supplier Database, which is a great way to verify suppliers. Within that one, you can look up products, but you can also look up particular specific suppliers. Right. And this data is based on import records into the US. So if they supply to other countries, that's not going to be in there. And you're not going to find every single supplier in there, but if you are able to, then you're able to see how many shipments they've had in the US, which tells you that they've worked with US companies, which is a good thing if you're selling in the US, because the standards in one country are different to another. So that's one thing. You also want to look at, what type of products and materials do they use. Generally, you want to try to find a manufacturer rather than a trading company. The difference being a manufacturer is the one that makes the product. A trading company is almost the middleman who buys from the manufacturer and then sells to you. Yeah. There are some upsides to having a trading company. Usually the communication is a little bit easier, but the downside is that they're gonna have a little bit higher costs because they've got to make money as well. So if you're looking to find a manufacturer, one of the ways, because often they'll say that they're a manufacturer even if they're a trading company. Yeah. But if you look at the types of products that they make, and if they're selling lots of different types of products, and they're probably a trading company. Whereas if it's all linen, or it's all made of a certain material, or you can imagine it all being manufactured in a very similar fashion with the same machines, then they're more likely to be a manufacturer. Yeah, actually, I'll stop there. I feel like I'm starting to go maybe a little bit in depth there, but is there any other tips you want to add? Or
that's all like really good advice. And in fact, maybe I'll show something here on screen. Yeah. Just to give something to look at here is I've typed in that same keyword that we've put in here on Alibaba, microfiber towel. And one like quick actionable takeaway from this section is a few things you can do on here before you even go looking at these products, and you probably want to do this in the product research process when you're just getting estimates, is there's a few filters I want you to think about using here. So the first one is checking trade assurance. This is basically Alibaba's way of protecting you. So if anything goes wrong, whether like they don't make the product right or something with the payment goes wrong, they will help you with that process. And if a supplier doesn't have trade assurance on Alibaba, then there's something, in my opinion, sketchy about that, because Alibaba's pushing it. They want suppliers to have this. It protects them and it protects the customer. And so if they didn't choose that, then I would be wary of it. The next thing is going with a verified supplier. Now, I actually don't know what verified pro supplier is. I think this is relatively new. I'd have to look into that a bit, but either way, I think verified supplier is another great way or filter to check. And again, this will just help you find those high quality suppliers and weed out all the ones that aren't verified by Alibaba. Now, lastly, this will give you a really good list so far, but what I like to do is, especially if you're selling in, we sell in the US, but if you're selling in any other country, you'll want to do this too. Scroll down to this section. It is, I don't know why it's not open already, but previously exported to, and expand it. this is gonna show you or allow you to select, okay, I'm gonna be selling in the US. So I wanna make sure that my supplier has actually exported and shipped to my country. So I'm gonna select the US right there, but you would select your country. And that's gonna help you just ensure that your supplier has experience shipping to your country, because there's gonna be things that they need to know how to do. There's paperwork that they need to know how to fill out, and just you wouldn't want to work with somebody who's never actually done the thing that you want them to do. And these are my favorite ways. Hopefully an actual takeaway for you to just like quickly weed out the bad suppliers and get in front of you the good ones. And now you look through here and you look at the list of results to see the quotes. But really another thing that you should look at, we talk about this in our videos, is years of experience. So you can see 6 years here. Let's see, 16 years there, 2 years there. So you want to try to just like, I wouldn't weed out anyone who only has 2-3 years of experience, but just understand that going in that I would feel more confident reaching out to somebody that has 16 years versus 2 or 1 year experience. So these are, again, just some quick ways to navigate Alibaba effectively and try to find the best suppliers for either quotes or actually working with and ordering samples for or from.
Awesome. So just before we dive into the next mistake here, I'm just going to grab a question from the chat here. From Charles, who says, just started working on listing my first product. Use Jungle Scout to find it. That's awesome. Need help understanding how much to order from the supplier because I don't want to over order. Great question. Typically, like if you've used data, which you have, you've used Jungle Scout to help find this product, then I can't guarantee that using data means that it's absolutely going to be a success. No one can actually predict that, but it puts you in the best position to succeed because you've got the odds are in your favor if you've used data to back up your business decision. So with that being said, if you're really serious about launching a product, generally the more you can order, the better, or the quicker you're going to grow. A lot of the time, usually most people have the opposite problem where they just don't have enough capital to order enough. They're only able to order a smaller amount and they're probably gonna go out of stock in their first shipment. They might make some of that back, or if they're very lucky, they might make back enough in order to get another shipment. So what I'm saying is that I think it'd probably be hard to maybe order too much from your supplier unless you've got a lot of money. But to give you some more practical advice, and this is just a rule of thumb, it's not exact, but I would aim to order about 3 months worth of inventory if you can afford it. So how do you know how much that is? Well, you go off of your competitors. So type in the name of your product. We sell washable pee pads for dogs. I would type that into Amazon. You can use the Jungle Scout extension. That's gonna tell you the monthly sales for all of those top products. I would look at all of those and then sort of figure out the average. Maybe let's say you go, okay, on average, these top 10 sellers are on this top page there, selling about say 500 sales per month. So I would base an estimate off of that because if you want to rank on the first page of results for a keyword, generally you need to be doing about the same sales volume as those sellers. So if you want to be ranked number 1, you also need to be doing around about 500 sales per month. So keeping that in mind, I would say, okay, I'm gonna aim to order about 3 months worth of inventory. The reason that you need 3 months is that it generally, again, just rules of thumb here, it might take about 30 days to manufacture your product. And then it'll often take up to 30 days or more in shipping. So it will potentially take 60 days to get your next order in. So if you've got 90 days worth of inventory, that means you can be selling for 30 days and then you're probably gonna have to start thinking about another order pretty soon if you don't wanna run out of stock. So that's why at least 90 days is probably a good number to shoot for. Maybe up to 120 or like 3 to 4 months worth of inventory. There is a downside to having too much stock, and that's in paying storage fees to Amazon. So I would say, probably like 3 months worth is maybe a good balance, or 3 to 4 months. I'm curious if you have different advice.
No, I agree with that. One of the, I guess I'll add on to why that's important is because it's often agreed upon or thought about that Amazon has a honeymoon period, or gives you a honeymoon period in the beginning. And we saw this with our product launch. I mean, when we first launched, our BSR, which is the way any type of company like ours will estimate sales, and it's a really clear indicator of like how many sales you're doing. Our BSR shot up in the beginning, and to be honest with you, it's kind of hard for us to match what we did when we first launched our product. This is 2 years, and 1,000 reviews later, it's still hard for us to match that honeymoon period. And so Amazon actually gave us a badge. I think it was a new releases badge, and this is a highly coveted badge. When you first release your product, if you're able to sell a bunch of inventory quickly, and I believe we had like 2 really strong days that we sold like 50 units or something like that. And it was just like 2 days, and then we got that badge. The great part about having all this extra inventory is you can take advantage of that honeymoon period. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit more in storage fees after that period, or maybe don't even get that honeymoon period, and you kind of miss that. But still, I think it gives you an opportunity to have that honeymoon period. And I would be, hopefully, if you're able to buy a lot of inventory, you'd be willing to lose a little bit of money, or just like not make as much money because you're getting hit with these storage fees that you mentioned. But in the beginning, I mean, you're essentially paying for reviews. So I would do everything you can, bring as much inventory as you possibly can, but maybe not, don't empty your bank account. Like, you want to have some there for the next round too.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next mistake here.
Yeah, great. And then we'll get to some other questions, but the next mistake here, so mistake number 6 is selling difficult products, and especially for new sellers. The products that are difficult, what I mean by that are things that are gonna cause you headaches, like breakable products, right? It's gonna be hard for you to ship that to a customer, and then there's like hundreds, probably millions of negative reviews on Amazon where customers say it got delivered and it broke. And that's on the shipper, but sometimes it could actually be your product that arrived into the US or wherever you're selling broken, because it's just a fragile product. And a lot of times you can get those reviews removed because it's like a shipping problem, but a lot of times it's not. It's just like your product was fragile and it broke. So I don't like to sell anything that I can see that being easily broken, like if I throw the box around and really beat it up. That's one. Anything like food or anything you need frozen or refrigerated is gonna be extremely tough. Not only will you need to get it like approved by some sort of like government body or testing agencies, but you also need to like ship it in that refrigerated truck or however they do that. I have no experience with it, but I just know it's more difficult and it's more expensive, and it's a really big headache. So no breakable items, no refrigerated items, and then a big one. Think about returns, clothing, whether it's shoes, hats, actual clothing on your body. So they're the highest. They're one of the most highly profitable categories, but they're also the most returned categories on Amazon, the shirts and all that stuff, because people will buy, and I do this all the time, just to see if it fits. And if it doesn't, I return it. It's just part of the clothing category, and I don't want to mess with that. Returns are expensive on Amazon. And then you also have to match sizes, so like small, medium, large, extra large. There's different heights. It's a huge headache, even for experienced sellers. I try to avoid that. I'm probably missing a few, but what are some other types of products that people should just avoid, so that way they can just like uncheck those categories or just like hone in on what like they should look for?
Okay, so what have we covered? We've covered like a
breakable, fragile, clothing, and then like refrigerator or food items.
Yeah, often you may want to avoid electronics or very heavily basically like complicated products. So I say electronics. And again, everything that we're talking about here, it's not that it's an absolute rule that you can't do, but talking specifically to beginners and about giving you the best chance and the easiest way to get started and have the best chance of success. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I'd say electronics products, because again, there's just a higher risk of them, breaking or something. Like between these two products here, it's like, a mouse has a lot more chance of like not working than a mouse pad. It's just a piece of material, even if it's not cut exactly right or whatever. It's, it's hard for, hopefully it's hard for someone to mess up manufacturing a mouse pad. Whereas a mouse just it has more components to it. A little bit of a story here. In the past, I've sold one of my early products was like selling little USBs, or I had these little USB sticks that were bundled with this other product, and it was all well and fine, and it was a great, people loved it until it didn't work. I ended up having like a whole shipment of like 1,000 units that I didn't realize didn't work until I was like, oh, I got like a negative review and a return, and then another. And then another. I'm like, oh gosh, what has happened? And this entire shipment, something about like the chip in the USB, just it wasn't working. And in the end, like my supplier was able to ended up reimbursing me for most of it,
Oh,
or
that's good.
all of it, or most of it. But you know, that cost me so many reviews. It just set back my business so much, and was a huge, it was a huge detractor. So needless to say, I've never sold electronic products since. So yeah, there's that one.
There's also, just real quick before you jump categories here or ideas, like batteries, like anything electronic that needs batteries in it.
I've done that too.
Yes.
That was the worst. I was selling like lithium ion batteries, and that was okay.
You
but
were
then
actually selling the batteries.
I was literally selling.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was making multiple mistakes. So I was like selling camera batteries because like my background is in video and photography and stuff. So it wasn't based off of data. It was just like, I really like cameras. I'm going to sell camera batteries.
You would have been great for this.
Yeah, exactly. I needed this webinar back then. But yeah, batteries weren't great because I had the same issue again with that, where they were doing well, but I had instances where a shipment had issues with it. Plus they would get held up at customs for weeks sometimes. It was just a nightmare. So yeah, I would stay away from batteries as well, or potentially like products that come with batteries too.
Yeah, that's smart. I'm trying to think if there's any other products though, like
I think we've covered the main ones, but at least kind of given as like a pretty good framework. I think you hopefully have an idea of like, products that are, you know, not complicated. They're simple, not too many parts, not too fragile or breakable, things that you wouldn't return too much. Think about your own buying habits. What are the things that you often return to Amazon? And
that's actually a good point. If you think about, if you're gonna buy like laundry detergent, that might have not, that might have passed all of our checks here. Like it's not a tech or anything. It's not refrigerated. But if you think about buying behaviors, people buy Tide Pods, they buy these certain brands. They're not gonna buy a random laundry detergent company. So yeah, think about your own buying behaviors, and if you see a category that is just dominated by these big CPG or really just big brands that are house brands, then maybe don't get into that category if it's only dominated by them. That's probably the last thing I can think of.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's get on to the next question, the next mistake here.
Yeah, so our last mistake number 7 to avoid is selling products that have you could see any legal or liability issues arising. And this is, I know it sounds obvious, but there are ways to check this, and it might sound really obvious, and maybe there's certain products you're like, there's no way I can get in trouble with that, but you just need to double check. There's a few things you need to check. One, is there a patent on the product? As something as simple as this bottle, you know, there's people on Alibaba selling it, but this specific one is patented by Yeti. So you can sell like these tumblers and bottles, but they can't be the exact same one, you know, that overseas manufacturers are copying off of these ones. Just because someone's selling it doesn't mean that you can buy and sell it in the US. So looking for patents and looking for trademarks. So whether it's your brand name, whether it's like you're naming the product something, you have like a catchy like name for it and you want to trademark that, you need to check those two out. I can show real quick here. This is the USPTO. So if you're in the US, this is where you'd go. There's other websites as well that can do this as well, but this is the main one. This is the government website. You can search for trademarks up here or patents. You can also do, I think, like Google patents and Google trademarks to just like really quickly do it in the search, in the Google search. But outside of those, the third one is, I think the bigger one here is liability issues. So think about things that, if something were to go wrong with a product, whether it's tragically wrong or just like something went wrong with it, even like a minor thing, could you see being sued for that? So the obvious ones that we call out all the time are like a child's car seat, right? If something goes wrong with that, that's a pretty big mistake. Or a safety harness. Again, like these are things like, you know, someone's climbing Mount Everest and your safety harness broke. That's a pretty big deal. So just think about what could potentially happen if something were to go wrong. Can you see your product being suable?
Will your product kill someone?
Yeah, exactly. Think about it like that way. What's the worst that can happen with your product? Now, you don't need to be scared of that. I wouldn't let that stop you, but just be aware of it when you're thinking about products to sell. Maybe it's what gets you to sell one product over another. That could be that final thing that you look at.
So we've covered a lot of the mistakes and the things that you want to try to avoid when you're starting out to sell on Amazon. But if you are wanting all of the steps and things that you should be doing and exactly how to sell on Amazon, then make sure you check out our full How to Sell on Amazon video, which will teach you all the steps from A to Z. But thank you so much for joining today, and we'll look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Awesome. Take care.